We need hungrier talent who can meet higher targets, Brian explained, his voice smooth, rehearsed. He slid the termination papers across the polished conference table, the faint smell of espresso in the air. The company is moving in a new direction. My name's Darren McCabe. I'm 46 years old and spent the last 9 years as a senior account executive at Triana Corp in Kansas City, Missouri. In that time, I built a client portfolio that contributed nearly 40% of our total revenue. Not with flashy pitches or lucky breaks, but with long days, red-eye flights, and trust earned one handshake at a time. I didn't argue. I smiled, thanked him for the opportunity, and walked out. Brian Ellsworth had arrived 6 months ago, the new vice president of sales. Custom suits, motivational quotes ripped from LinkedIn, and not a single client meeting under his belt. He was hired to reinvigorate the team, and by week 3 had implemented a commission structure that slashed my earnings by 20%, even though my numbers were rock solid. The signs had been there. My desk was relocated during renovations, to a corner by the copier. My name disappeared from meeting invites. I noticed someone accessing my computer during lunch yesterday. Small things, yes, but together they painted a picture, a portrait, of someone being erased. I packed 9 years into a cardboard box. Family photos, a mug my daughter painted when she was 6, and a folder of client contacts I'd kept outside the company's database, a habit from years of safeguarding relationships. Need help with that? Valerie from accounting asked. Brows furrowed. Changing offices? I lied. In the elevator, I stood beside Everett Stanton, our CEO. He nodded, barely registering me, eyes glued to his phone. He had no clue what Brian had done or the ripple it would send through our quarterly numbers. But he would soon enough. Back home, I drove in silence. No radio, no calls, just thoughts. As I pulled into the driveway, my phone buzzed. Travis Ricks, my biggest client. Our annual contract renewal was next week. He'd texted about dinner reservations. He didn't know. No one did. I set my phone down and stared out the window. Brian hadn't just fired an employee. He'd cut the single thread connecting Triana to millions in revenue, and he didn't even know it. The Quiet Exit. Part 2. The Seed of Loyalty. I joined Triana when it was still Midwestern Financial Services. No glitzy offices, no vision, statements, just Everett, shaking my hand across a chipped desk. I want someone who knows this market, he said. Someone clients trust. For 7 years, he was right to trust me. I expanded our reach from local operations to national contracts. Lockhart Manufacturing, Henderson Group, clients others said were out of our league. I turned 1-year contracts into 5-year commitments. Wife Rebecca used to joke that I was married to my clients. Thursday dinner with the Johnsons again? She'd ask, already knowing the answer. Client bonding, I'd say, kissing her goodbye. Our kids got used to it. Ball games, recitals, all missed. Dad's working became our unofficial family motto. 3. Promotions. 2 office expansions, 1 recession later. We'd grown from a $4 million shop to a $30 million machine. My clients accounted for $12 million of that. The first real warning came in a quarterly review. Brian pointed to a chart. Your client acquisition rate has flatlined. Because I'm expanding existing relationships. Lockhart just doubled there. Contract. He smiled thinly. The future is in new business. We need hunters, not farmers. The next week, my executive assistant, Julia, was reassigned. The month after, my travel requests required additional approvals. My expense reports came back flagged. Death by 1,000 cuts. Then came Alicia Winters. 29. No industry experience. Fresh from a failed tech startup. Brian called her a disruptor. He assigned her to join me on a call with Travis. No intro, no. Warning. After the meeting, Travis texted. Who's the new girl? Are you training your replacement? I laughed it off, just expanding the team. But that night, a chill settled in my chest. I'd seen enough boardrooms, enough faces to know. Something was shifting. Something was ending. The morning after the termination, I sat in my garage, watching the sun spill across my workbench. Years ago, I'd promised myself I'd build a cedar canoe out here. Never got past sketching the frame. My hands needed something to do. Instead, I opened my laptop and stared at the blinking cursor. I had decisions to make. First, Travis. I owed him transparency. I dialed his number, not as an employee of Triana, but as Darren, the person who had helped him triple his regional growth in 3 years. "Hey man, you ready for Tuesday night?" he asked. "Hope Brian's not coming. Guy gives me hives." "About that." I paused. "I'm no longer with Triana." Silence. "Wait. What? Did you quit?" "They let me go. Said they're moving in a new direction," Yikis cursed under his breath. "That's the dumbest thing I've heard this quarter. Darren, let me be clear. I signed with Triana because of you. Not the logo, not the PowerPoint slides." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "What are you planning?" he asked, voice low now, conspiratorial. "I'm not sure. But if I go solo, would you follow?" There was no hesitation. "Send me the paperwork. I'm in." That was the spark. In the next 3 days, I called every major client I had nurtured over the past decade: Johnson's, Lockhart, Henderson Group. Each call was the same rhythm: surprise, anger, loyalty. "You're the reason we stayed through the merger. Brian? That guy couldn't sell water in a desert. If you're building something new, Darren, count us in." By Friday, I had verbal commitments representing nearly $9.2 million in annual revenue, more than a quarter of Triana's active contracts. My LinkedIn inbox exploded with support, questions, and one intriguing message from Julia, my former assistant. "Julia, he's panicking. You should see Brian's face. Also." I took screenshots. "Thought you might need them," I replied with a single thumbs-up emoji. That woman was sharper than most VPs I'd ever met. The next step was paperwork. Rebecca, bless her, used to be a corporate lawyer before she left the field to homeschool our twins. She reviewed my old Triana contract, highlighting clauses and loopholes in yellow. "No non-compete," she said, surprised. "Just a confidentiality agreement. That gives you room." "And the CRM system?" I asked. "Don't touch it. But if you have independent contacts outside of it," I smiled. "I do. I always have." By Sunday night, I'd registered a new LLC, Midwest Integrity Partners. Website coming soon. Email addresses set up. Legal forms drafted. I wasn't building an empire, just a haven for the clients who still believed business could be built on handshakes and honesty. For the people like Julia who wanted to work without watching their backs. The final puzzle piece came Monday morning. I received a call from Everett Stanton, Triana's CEO. "Darren, I just heard. I didn't approve this." Brian said it was company direction. Silence crackled on the line. "I'll be honest with you, Everett," I continued. "I've got no hard feelings, but I'm not coming back." "You've always been a straight shooter," he said after a long pause. "You deserve better than how this was handled." I could hear regret in his voice, but it was too late for regret. Everett sighed. "Would you consider consulting?" "Not at this time. I've got a canoe to build, and a few contracts to sign." He chuckled softly. "Well, whatever you do, they're lucky to have you." That afternoon, I signed my first client contract under my new banner, Travis's. We toasted over Zoom. It wasn't champagne, but it was liberation. Triana had fired me. But I wasn't gone. I was reborn. I didn't tell Travis I'd been fired. Not yet. Instead, I met him at the steakhouse as planned. Same corner booth, same bourbon neat. He talked about expansion plans, new markets, I nodded, smiled, made notes. "Triana's still got the muscle, right?" he asked. "Depends which muscle you're talking about." He laughed, but I didn't. Not entirely. That night I didn't sleep. I drafted a spreadsheet. Every client I'd brought in, every contact I still had, their renewal dates, their pain points. The small details I remembered that no CRM ever caught. Nancy's son just started at Vanderbilt. Paul doesn't take calls on Fridays. Hannah only signs contracts after 5 p.m. when her assistant leaves for the day. They weren't just clients. They were people. People I'd listened to for nearly a decade. I booked coffee meetings, casual lunches. Thinking of starting something new, I'd say. Just picking brains. No sales pitch. Not yet. Just seeds. Meanwhile, whispers reached me from inside Triana. Alicia now had my office, my calendar invites. She'd reached out to Travis. Twice. He hadn't replied. Then came a text from Julia, my old assistant. "They're panicking. Brian's asking for your notes on the Henderson group. Said it's urgent." There were no notes. Not for them. Every deal I'd built was rooted in loyalty. Not to a logo, but to a man they trusted. And that man was no longer with Triana. The reckoning had begun. The calls started trickling in the following week. First, from clients I hadn't spoken to in months, then from those who hadn't needed me in years. But they were all asking the same question: is everything all right at Triana? I played it cool. "Business is business, you know how it is," I'd say. "But hey, you're always on my mind. I'll send you some fresh ideas." I kept my responses casual, never revealing the storm brewing underneath. But each callback felt like a small victory. It was proof that I still had power, that I wasn't just an old man faded from the memory of the company. I was a person they remembered, someone they still trusted. But every win came with its price. I could see the cracks forming inside Triana now. As I set up meetings with clients, I kept an eye on my LinkedIn feed. Alicia was making waves. She'd scored a deal with a client I had spent 5 years nurturing, a client I had developed a personal bond with. And now I saw the announcement. Alicia Winters secures major contract with Lockhart Manufacturing. I nearly snapped, my phone in half. How quickly they forget, I thought. The bitterness burned hot, but it also fueled me. I had underestimated the scale of my influence at Triana. They might have cut me loose, but they didn't sever my connection to the people who mattered most. It was clear now that my legacy had power, and with it, I could do more than just rebuild. What was lost? I could take it all back. I set my plan in motion. It had been 6 months since I walked out of Triana's polished glass doors, but in the silence that followed, I found the clarity I hadn't known I needed. I didn't need to be an employee anymore. I needed to be a force. I started consulting, not in the traditional sense, but in a way that made sure my name still carried weight in the industry. I took on select projects, working behind the scenes, with my old clients, crafting solutions they hadn't thought of. They trusted me, even after all this time, and in a year, I made back what I lost. But it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about proving something. Not to Brian or Alicia, but to myself. I was capable of more than Triana ever saw. I was capable of taking back what was mine. One day, I received an invitation, a gala hosted by Triana Corp, celebrating their successful growth. I knew it was a thinly veiled attempt to soothe the cracks they'd been trying to paper over. I knew this would be my moment, my return. I suited up and walked in like I owned the place, because in some ways, I did. I mingled with old colleagues, many of whom looked at me with a mixture of pity and curiosity. Alicia Winters was there too, gliding around like she had replaced me in the hierarchy. Her smile was the same one she'd given me the day she started, but now it had a new edge. She was confident, thinking she was untouchable. I waited, Then came Brian Ellsworth, the man who had set all of this in motion. His smooth smile faltered when he saw me. "McCabe," he said, extending a hand. "Didn't expect to see you here." I didn't shake his hand. I looked him dead in the eyes. "It's good to be back." The silence between us was thick. He was trying to hold on to his composure, but he could feel the weight of the moment. He knew I wasn't there to reminisce or mend fences. I didn't need to say anything more. My presence was a message. I had the clients, the expertise, and the respect that Triana could never replace. And as the evening wore on, it became clear, to me, they had made a mistake they could never undo. By the end of the night, I received a call from one of my old clients, the one that had once been my largest source of revenue. They were in the market for a new partner, and they were asking for my services. I didn't have to think twice. I signed them the next week. Alicia never saw it coming. Brian's promotion was next in line to fall apart. Triana's smooth veneer cracked just enough for me to slip back in, but not as an employee. As a ghost, a shadow they couldn't shake, an echo of what they had lost. By the time I walked out of the boardroom with the new deal, I felt lighter than I had in years. I had taken everything back, not with power or wealth, but with the one thing they had underestimated: my loyalty, my knowledge, and my resolve. As the elevator doors closed, I knew I would never step foot into Triana again. But they would always know my name, and that, in the end, was my quiet revenge.